as he stood by, a breakdown of abuse, friendship, and fatal revenge. This story begins not with a choice, but with the terrifying end of one. We are introduced to Eun-su and Hui-su in a car, Eun-su driving, Hui-su bearing the physical evidence of her torment, bruises. This opening shot is a promise of what is to come, but the series quickly pulls back to show us the gradual, suffocating build-up to that breaking point. Eun-su is a composed and sharp personal shopper at a high-end mall, projects an image of utter control. This control is a shield forged in childhood trauma. Flashbacks reveal her younger self, terrified in a closet with her brother, Eun-hyuk, as their father, Cho-young-nam, brutally abused their mother, Park Ae-sun. She knows what it is to live with domestic violence. She's seen her mother attempt suicide and been traumatized by the fear of open windows and the creaking of doors. This past dictates her present. She is meticulous, but inwardly seething. Her professional life introduces two critical figures. The first is So-baek, a charming, astute, and slightly shady Chinese businessman she meets when he steals a diamond watch. Their interaction is a chess match she holds her own in, and according to some people, some subtle romantic tension. Although I personally didn't see it, but that mostly because I didn't go into this drama expecting romance. So-baek is probably the only good man in the whole drama, maybe except for that one cop whose name I don't remember. Everyone else is basically a demon who crawled out of hell, establishing a connection that will become essential. The second is Mrs. Kong, a VIP customer whose battered body is a mirror of Eun-su's suppressed fears. When Mrs. Kong is silenced and whisked away by her powerful, abusive husband, Mr. Kwon, Eun-su is troubled, her lifelong instinct to act colliding with the brutal reality that the system, as her own father predicted, doesn't care about domestic matters. When Mrs. Kong tragically dies by suicide, Eun-su's internal dam breaks. It validates her deepest fear. Standing by changes nothing. While Eun-su is trying to navigate her world, her best friend Hui-su is trapped in a domestic hell. Her husband, Jin-pyo, is a monster of manipulation and cruelty. The guy is evil. Hui-su's perspective reveals the terrifying specifics of her prison. She is forced to cancel a simple lunch with Eun-su because of bruises all over her body. The abuse is relentless, combining physical violence with psychological torment, like forcing her to adhere to rigid OCD rules like his drink must be exactly at the center of the coaster, installing CCTV, and constantly monitoring her. We learn that his beatings caused her to miscarry, a trauma he twisted to blame her for. Hui-su is an artist, a former children's illustrator, now confined to a storage room for solace. She tries to escape, trying to fly to the U.S., and even attempting to report him to the police. But her efforts are brutally shut down by Jin-pyo, who threatens her sick mother and then kills her cat as a punishment. Jin-young, Jin-pyo's sister, a detective who warns Hui-su that police rarely intervene in domestic disputes. Jin-pyo's mother, Ko Jong-suk, a domestic abuse survivor herself, adds another layer of tragic irony, unable, more likely unwilling to see her son's abuse, believing Hui-su's injuries are accidents. The abuse culminates at an art gallery where a drunk, reckless Hui-su, tired of playing the victim, sabotages Jin-pyo's business deal. Her punishment is a chilling realization. He is going to kill her one day. Quick detour, because this is something the show actually did right. The director made a deliberate choice not to sensationalize the abuse. A lot of dramas love to shove the violence right in your face for shock value, like they're chasing trauma points. Here, most of the violence happens off-screen. The camera pans away, the audio does the heavy lifting, and then we cut to the aftermath, the bruises, the trembling, the silence. It's not flashy. It's not cinematic. It's uncomfortable in a very real-world way. And that restraint makes the abuse feel way more authentic. It's not there to entertain you. It's there to show you the impact, not the spectacle. That choice keeps the story grounded and way more disturbing than any slow-motion punch ever could. And there's another detail I really liked. The way the show uses loud music to cover the sounds of the abuse. It's this grim little ritual. Crank up the volume, hide the screams, pretend everything's normal. But the wild part is the neighbors know. Everyone knows. They just act like they don't. It's another layer of people standing by, pretending it's not their business, doing absolutely nothing while someone is getting destroyed behind a thin wall. The show doesn't rub your face in it, but makes the point loud and clear. Silence is its own kind of violence. Everything comes crashing together when Eun-su storms into Hui-su's apartment. Eun-su is still reeling from Mrs. Kang's death, a reminder that women like them don't get rescue arcs. She finds Hui-su on the brink of jumping out of the window, wanting to die on her own terms rather than at the hands of her husband. This moment is the pivot point. Eun-su's trauma, Hui-su's desperation, and the societal failure to protect them converge. Reporting Jin-pyo won't do anything. Escaping is basically a fantasy, and the world has already shown them it doesn't care. The only viable option left, as Eun-su declares in a furious, definitive statement, is to eliminate the source of the suffering. We're going to kill him, she states, naming their target, Jin-pyo. Eun-su builds the whole plan with the cold logic of someone who's lived with violence long enough to understand it. She even asks So-baek how to disappear a man, because if anyone knows how the dark corners of the world operate, it's him. He basically tells her the golden rule: no body, no crime. I should mention that So-baek doesn't know the plan. He thinks it's all hypothetical. He does figure out later, just after they do it. Her plan is actually smart. She hires Jang Kong, Jin-pyo's doppelganger and an undocumented stowaway, to fly to Shanghai under Jin-pyo's name. If Jin-pyo leaves the country, the real body disappears, and the women finally breathe. They even dig the grave. They rehearse the chokehold. They wait for the company dinner when Jin-pyo will be drunk. However, the reality of violence is messy and immediate. Jin-pyo, suspicious of Hui-su's location and alerted by a promotional text for the Shanghai flight, races home early. He finds the women practicing their chokehold with a rope and pillow. The confrontation is quick and brutal. Jin-pyo nearly kills Eun-su, but in a surge of rage, Hui-su smashes his head with a snow globe. Jin-pyo dies instantly. The planned, clean disappearance is now a panicked cover-up. Once the body is on the floor, the fantasy of control evaporates. Eun-su switches into survival mode, like she's been training for this her entire life. Hui-su, meanwhile, is falling apart in real time, hallucinating blood on her hands, the walls, the floor. Her brain is basically running Windows 11. The plan bends, twists, and mutates into something much darker. Jang Kong shows up, clueless, and carrying the energy of a guy who definitely wasn't hired for this. Eun-su convinces him to put on Jin-pyo's suit, watch, and, yes, carry the actual body in a suitcase down her car. It's messed up, but it works because the man has zero leverage and even less awareness of how bad his night just got. He does exactly what they need. Withdraws cash, gets seen on CCTV, boards the flight to Shanghai. Just like that, Jin-pyo's last known location is beautifully documented. Even Jin-young, Jin-pyo's detective sister, accidentally helps by assuming her brother is cheating and telling him, well, the man she thinks is him, to lay low. With the alibi moving along, the women handle the worst part, the body. The drive is almost as terrifying as the act itself. Hui-su keeps scrubbing imaginary blood off her hands like she's trying to erase her own skin. They hit a deer, because of course they hit a deer, and both of them spiral at the idea that this is some cosmic sign telling them to turn back. They don't. They bury him. Shallow grave, deep panic. A couple spots them, because Lady Luck is on vacation. For a moment afterward, they try to pretend they're free. They get seaside food, firecrackers, a little slice of a life they might have had. It doesn't last. Their first night of freedom ends with a cop inspecting the deer blood on their car and asking them to open the trunk, where the shovels from the burial are sitting. They survive it with sheer dumb luck and nothing else. The company does what companies do best. Pretend nothing happened, drop the embezzlement case against Jin-pyo, and focus on protecting its image. No justice, just PR. The women try to step into their new lives. Eun-su finally confronts her father, tosses out the childhood trauma shrine that was her closet, and starts caring for her mother with a tenderness she never received herself. Hui-su puts on a mini dress, literally the first outfit in the entire show, where she looks like she's choosing her own skin, and gets a job at So-baek's warehouse. For a moment, it looks like forward motion is possible. The world seems to be opening up. However, the shadows of the past are long. Jin-pyo's mother, Jong-suk, is highly suspicious of Hui-su's sudden happiness and bribes security to spy on her. And Eun-su is dragged back into the moral quagmire when Mr. Kwon's abusive Mrs. Kong makes the news. Eun-su, no longer willing to be complicit, decides to give her real statement, challenging Mr. Kwon and prompting a physical confrontation that is only stopped by So-baek. In the midst of their shared trauma and relief, Eun-su and Hui-su bond with So-baek over the loss of his son, finding a fragile moment of respite in a game of mahjong. The guilt comes back, not gently, but with hallucinations, noises, flashes of Jin-pyo. And in the final moments, when someone breaks into Hui-su's apartment, the story circles right back to fear. It leaves you with the question the show wants lingering in your head. Is this someone seeking revenge, or the ghost of the man they killed? And this is where the story stops being good. It's true, I had to say it. It becomes your run-of-the-mill thriller, and makes no sense. Anyway, let's get into the last 3 episodes. The final stretch of As You Stood By just goes feral, and not in a good way. The show shifts gears from domestic horror into a full-blown crime thriller, but not the glossy kind. This is the type where every bad decision snowballs, every lie sprouts 2 more, and the real villain stops being Jin-pyo and becomes the entire corrupt system surrounding him. The first hit in this domino line is Jang Kong. Remember the harmless little doppelganger who just wanted some quick cash? Yeah, turns out he's a professional scam artist with the survival instincts of a cockroach and the morals of a used tissue. Why is he suddenly evil? Where's his family that we saw him with in Shanghai? I have no idea. He digs through Jin-pyo's phone data, finds the recordings, the grave location, everything. Then he blackmails Hui-su for 3 billion won. 3 billion. And because the show needs higher stakes, he kills Jong-suk's spy in a panic. This pulls Officer Choi into the story, the one character with an actual moral spine, which is probably why the narrative forgets about him half the time. But the real chaos engine is Jin-young. She goes from vaguely tense sister-in-law to full-blown political psychopath. Her dream of becoming police commissioner becomes the axis of the entire plot. And the second her family scandal threatens her career, she hits the panic button with the speed of a Formula One driver. She deletes CCTV footage. She destroys evidence pointing to Hui-su. She kidnaps Jang Kong and drugs him like she's running a private prison. Then she starts plotting to frame Hui-su for everything. Murder, paranoia, self-harm, whatever sticks. She's not loyal to her brother. She's loyal to her ambition. Meanwhile, Eun-su spirals into the kind of desperation that makes people do stupid, heroic, terrifying things. She reaches out to a fixer, which forces So-baek to step in. He's not doing it out of friendship. He's doing it because he realizes his offhand advice about killing an abusive husband started this avalanche. His solution is surprisingly practical. Move both Jang Kong and Jin-pyo's body to China. No body, no crime, and, more importantly, no South Korean jurisdiction. It's messed up but logical. So of course that's not what happens. Gotta fill out the runtime somehow. Eun-su tries to handle things alone, kidnaps Jang Kong, and everything just gets worse. Jang Kong escapes, kills Mr. Y, the fixer, and runs straight to Jin-young to bargain for his life. They head to the grave, but all they find is a rotting deer. The suitcase with Jin-pyo's body is buried deeper, and for a second it looks like the women might actually get away with everything. Then Jin-young snaps. Her new plan? Pour suicide tout suicide. Clean, efficient, no loose ends. Except there's one problem. Jin-young is an idiot. The finale of As You Stood By is less about the murder itself and more about the unraveling of alliances, the consequences of past choices, and the system finally catching up to the corrupt. Episode 8 kicks off with Officer Choi Jae-gu finally confronting Jin-young over the phone. He's recovered the CCTV footage she deleted, and she panics, running to her former chief and bribing him to remove Jae-gu from the case. But this buys just enough time for So-baek and Eun-su to find Hui-su outside her mother's nursing home. They save her from despair, and though Hui-su is weighed down by guilt, Eun-su does her best to lift her spirits. Meanwhile, Eun-su's clever provocation sets the trap for Jin-young. She gets arrested on false charges, but luck intervenes. One of Eun-su's VIP customers is an assemblywoman, and she exposes Jin-pyo's embezzlement. The commissioner demands answers, putting Jin-young on the defensive. The chaos peaks when Jong-suk, hiding in Jin-young's apartment, discovers Jang-kong cuffed in her storage room. Furious at his arrogance and laughter at the No family's chaos, she kills him. Later, she calls Jin-young for help, and the two attempt to move the body, only to be intercepted by So-baek and his fixer, Mr. Eun-su joins in, resulting in a car crash on the highway where Jang Kang's dead body spills out in full view of bystanders and cameras. Both Jong-suk and Jin-young are promptly arrested. Amid this mayhem, Hui-su makes a pivotal choice. Fearful for Eun-su's safety and realizing the danger Jin-young poses, she turns herself into Officer Jae-gu, confessing to Jin-pyo's murder. She hopes that by doing so, she can protect the friend who stood by her through everything. The trial is intense, but ultimately redemptive. Hui-su accepts full responsibility for premeditated murder, while Eun-su admits her complicity in turning a blind eye to domestic abuse. Her courage inspires Mrs. Jo to finally leave Mr. Jo, confronting her own abusive past. In prison, Eun-su and Mrs. Jo reconcile. Secrets come out, apologies are exchanged, and Eun-su's long-held guilt begins to lift. Hui-su, too, feels a sense of peace, finally able to relax after years of living in fear. Once released, Eun-su and So-baek wait for Hui-su to finish her sentence. The three visit Hui-su's mother's grave, acknowledging the past but choosing to start fresh. They move to Vietnam, working in So-baek's Chinese market by day and enjoying quiet evenings together. Hui-su returns to painting, finding joy in creation, while Eun-su takes up surfing, a metaphor for her new approach to life. Facing waves head-on, resilient and unafraid. The story closes not on revenge or violence, but on healing, responsibility, and the small victories of reclaiming a life once stolen by fear. So yeah, after all that, they found peace and maybe a little extra togetherness. And that's a wrap on As You Stood By. Trauma, revenge, messy cover-ups, and maybe a little extra togetherness. If you've seen it, tell me, did you cheer, cringe, or just silently judge the last stretch like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you survived the ride with me. And don't forget to subscribe for more drama breakdowns that actually tell you what happened and what the heck it all means. Until next time.